It only lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes that created one of the most viral moments in American congressional history. Marjorie Taylor Greene thought she had cornered Jasmine Crockett. She was sitting there with that familiar smirk, deploying her usual provocation tactics, convinced that the young Texas Congresswoman would stay silent, would back down like so many others before her. But what happened next would become the biggest backfire of Greene's political career. When Jasmine Crockett stood up, the atmosphere in that committee room shifted completely. You could feel the tension crackling through C-SPAN cameras. Greene had no idea she was about to face a verbal destruction so epic, so perfectly crafted, that it would break the internet within hours. But to understand why this moment was so devastating, we need to go back to what led up to this explosive confrontation. Picture this. It's a late evening in the House Oversight Committee. The fluorescent lights are buzzing, exhausted staffers are checking their phones, and what should have been a routine hearing is about to become the most watched congressional clip of the year. But here's what nobody saw coming. The woman who would deliver the knockout punch was someone most Americans had never heard of just 2 years earlier. Jasmine Crockett wasn't supposed to be the one to take down Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was the freshman Congresswoman from Dallas, the former civil rights lawyer who preferred policy over performance. While Greene was building her brand on controversy and viral moments, Crockett was quietly building coalitions and crafting legislation. Two completely different approaches to politics. Two completely different backgrounds, and yet destiny was about to bring them together in the most spectacular way possible. But there was something about Jasmine Crockett that Marjorie Taylor Greene completely underestimated. Something that would explain why what happened next was so perfectly devastating. You think this was just about committee rules or parliamentary procedure? Think again. This confrontation had been building for months, simmering beneath the surface of Congress like a political pressure cooker ready to explode. And the fuse? It wasn't what you think. It started with the little things. The eye rolls during Crockett's speeches, the dismissive comments during breaks, the way Greene would interrupt when Crockett was speaking, treating the Harvard-educated lawyer like she didn't belong in that chamber. For months Crockett had been watching, learning, waiting, and Greene, she had no idea she was poking a sleeping giant. Here's what most people don't know about that night. Crockett almost didn't attend the committee meeting. She was exhausted, having just returned from a district event in Dallas. Her chief of staff actually suggested she skip it. It was supposed to be routine, nothing major on the agenda, but something inside her said she needed to be there. Call it intuition, call it fate, but that decision would change everything. The irony. Greene had been planning this attack for weeks. According to sources close to the committee, she had been telling colleagues she was going to put that rookie in her place. She had her talking points ready, her provocations planned. What she didn't have was a plan for what would happen if her target fought back with the precision of a trained prosecutor and the wit of a comedy legend. Now here's where things get really interesting. Greene didn't just attack Crockett's policies or her voting record, she went personal, and in doing so she made the fatal mistake that would lead to her destruction. "I think your fake eyelashes are messing with what you're reading," Greene said, her voice dripping with that particular brand of mean girl energy that had made her famous. The comment was calculated to embarrass, to diminish, to reduce an accomplished lawyer and legislator to nothing more than her appearance. For a moment the room was silent. Crockett's face remained expressionless. But if you knew what to look for, and the cameras caught it, you could see something shift in her eyes. Not nod or not hurt, but something far more dangerous. Focus. The kind of focus that comes from years of facing down opposing counsel in courtrooms across Texas. But here's what makes this moment so fascinating from a psychological perspective. Greene had just made the classic bully's mistake. She had revealed her own insecurities while attacking someone else's confidence. Because here's the thing about Jasmine Crockett. She had spent her career being underestimated because of how she looked, being dismissed as just a pretty face by people who didn't know she had graduated summa cum laude from college and earned her law degree while working full-time. Greene thought she was attacking Crockett's weakness. Instead, she had just awakened her superpower. What happened next will be studied in communication classes for decades. Crockett didn't just respond, she counterattacked with the precision of a surgeon and the devastating effectiveness of a master tactician. "I'm just curious just to better understand your ruling," Crockett began, her voice calm, measured, professional. "If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde bad-built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?" The room exploded. Not literally, of course, but you could feel the collective intake of breath from everyone present. Even the stenographer probably paused, because in that one sentence Crockett had done something absolutely brilliant. She had turned the rules of congressional procedure into a weapon of mass destruction. Think about the genius of this moment. She didn't break any rules. She didn't violate any protocols. She simply asked a hypothetical question that happened to perfectly describe her attacker while highlighting the absurdity of the torcing. It was legal, it was devastating, and it was absolutely unforgettable. But the brilliance went even deeper than that. The alliteration bleach blonde bad built butch body wasn't accidental. Crockett, remember, was a trained lawyer who understood the power of language. She crafted that phrase like a closing argument, designed for maximum impact and memorability, and boy did it work. Greene's face in that moment? Priceless. You could see her brain trying to process what had just happened. She had come to the committee room thinking she was the predator, only to discover she was actually the prey. The hunter had become the hunted, and she didn't even realize it until the trap had already snapped shut. But here's where the story gets even more fascinating. In the immediate aftermath, Greene tried to salvage the situation. She complained to the committee chair. She protested the language, she tried to play the victim. But the damage was done, and everyone in that room knew it, including Greene herself. Watch the footage again. And yes, you should absolutely watch it again. And look at Greene's body language after Crockett's response. The confidence is gone. The smirk has disappeared. She's fidgeting. She's looking around for support that isn't coming. She's realizing that she just got absolutely schooled on national television. Meanwhile, Crockett sits back down with the composure of someone who just delivered a perfect closing argument. No celebration, no gloating, just the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Because that's the difference between a prosecutor and a provocateur. One destroys with precision, the other just makes noise. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, every social media platform was buzzing with reactions. Bleach blonde bad built butch body started trending worldwide. Comedy shows picked it up. News anchors struggled to repeat it with straight faces. Late night hosts had a field day. But here's what made this moment truly special. It wasn't just Democrats celebrating. Republicans, independents, people who had never heard of either Congresswoman before were sharing the clip. Because sometimes, regardless of political affiliation, everyone can appreciate a perfectly executed comeback. The numbers were staggering. The original C-SPAN footage got millions of views. Reaction videos multiplied like wildfire. Think pieces were written analyzing the linguistic brilliance of the phrase. Merchandise appeared online within 24 hours. T-shirts, coffee mugs, bumper stickers, all featuring those 6 words that had brought down one of the most notorious figures in Congress. And through it all, Crockett maintained her dignity. She didn't gloat, she didn't do victory laps. When asked about it in subsequent interviews, she simply said she was asking a procedural question. That composure, that refusal to sink to the level of her attacker, only made her victory more complete. Let's pause for a moment and analyze why this worked so perfectly. Because this wasn't just a random insult thrown in anger, this was a masterclass in psychological warfare disguised as parliamentary procedure. First, the element of surprise. Greene expected Crockett to either ignore the attack or respond emotionally. Instead, she got surgical precision wrapped in procedural language. It was like expecting a slap and getting hit by a curse missile. Second, the use of alliteration. Bleach blonde bad built butch body isn't just insulting, it's catchy. It sticks in your memory like a commercial jingle. Crockett understood that in the age of social media, memorability is everything. Third, the tactical brilliance of framing it as a question. By asking whether such language would be allowed, Crockett avoided directly calling Greene names while still getting the insult across perfectly. It was like a legal loophole, but for verbal combat. Fourth, the specificity. This wasn't a generic insult, it was tailored specifically to Greene's appearance and persona. The bleach blonde reference to her hair, bad built addressing her physique, butch commenting on her aggressive demeanor. Each word was chosen for maximum impact. But this confrontation was about more than just 2 congresswomen trading barbs. It represented something larger happening in American politics. For too long, women in politics, especially women of color, had been expected to take abuse silently, to turn the other cheek, to be the bigger person while their attackers faced no consequences. Crockett's response represented a new paradigm. The idea that you can maintain your dignity while still defending yourself. That you can be professional while still being fierce, that sometimes the best response to a bully is show them exactly what they're dealing with. This is why the moment resonated so broadly. It wasn't just about politics, It was about every person who had ever been underestimated, dismissed, or attacked because of how they looked. Crockett showed that you don't have to accept disrespect just to keep the peace. The impact on both women's careers was immediate and lasting. For Greene, it was a humbling reminder that not everyone would tolerate her usual tactics. For Crockett, it was a coming-out party on the national stage, introducing millions of Americans to a new voice in politics. Here's something crucial that many people missed in all the viral excitement. This wasn't Jasmine Crockett's first rodeo. Law before she entered politics. She was a civil rights attorney who had faced down hostile courtrooms, aggressive opposing counsel, and judges who didn't take her seriously because of her age and appearance. She had cut her teeth defending people who couldn't defend themselves, taking on cases that other lawyers wouldn't touch, fighting for justice in a system that often seemed stacked against her clients. Every courtroom victory had prepared her for this moment, teaching her how to stay cool under pressure and strike back at exactly the right moment. Meanwhile, Greene's background was in business and conspiracy theories, not verbal combat with trained professionals. She was used to dealing with people who were either already on her side or easily intimidated. Crockett represented something she had never encountered before, someone who wouldn't back down and had the skills to fight back effectively. The media coverage of this moment was unlike anything we'd seen for a congressional committee meeting. Cable news shows played the clip on loop. International outlets picked up the story. Comedy Central featured it prominently. Even serious news programs had to acknowledge that something significant had happened. What made the coverage so interesting was how it crossed party lines. Conservative commentators who usually defended Greene found themselves at a loss for words. Liberal pundits who had never heard of Crockett were suddenly singing her praises. And in the middle, mainstream media outlets were trying to figure out how to cover a moment that was simultaneously hilarious and historically significant. The phrase itself became a cultural phenomenon. It was referenced in stand-up comedy routines, political cartoons, and even academic discussions about the changing nature of political discourse. Linguists analyzed its construction, while political scientists debated its implications for congressional civility. In the months following this confrontation, something interesting happened. Greene became noticeably more careful about her personal attacks on fellow congresswomen. Not that she stopped being controversial, that's her brand, but she seemed to realize that not everyone would just take her abuse without fighting back. For Crockett, the moment opened doors. Speaking invitations poured in. Media requests multiplied. Her social media following exploded. She went from being a relatively unknown freshman congresswoman to being one of the most recognizable faces as Democratic politics, almost overnight. But perhaps most importantly, the moment changed the expectations for how women in politics should respond to personal attacks. The old model of ignore it and it will go away was replaced by something new, strategic, precise, devastating counterattacks that maintained professionalism while delivering unmistakable messages. What happened next was unprecedented. The phrase bleach blonde, bad-built butch body transcended politics entirely. It appeared on merchandise and memes in everyday conversations. People who had never watched C-SPAN in their lives could quote it verbatim. The alliteration made it irresistible to repeat. The specificity made it memorable. The context made it satisfying. It was the perfect storm of linguistic creativity, psychological insight, and comedic timing. In an era of carefully scripted political communications, here was something spontaneous, authentic, and undeniably effective. Social media influencers started using it in completely different contexts. Fashion bloggers referenced it when discussing style choices. Fitness instructors incorporated it into workout motivation. It became a cultural touchstone, a moment when politics intersected with pop culture in the most unexpected way. Let's break down exactly how Crockett constructed this moment of genius. First, she waited. She didn't immediately fire back when Greene attacked her appearance. She took time to think, to plan, to craft the perfect response. This patience was crucial. It allowed her to create something devastatingly effective rather than just reactively angry. Second, she used the parliamentary framework to her advantage. By posing her comeback as a hypothetical question about committee rules, she stayed within the bounds of acceptable discourse, while delivering an unacceptable insult. It was like finding a local in the Geneva Convention. Third, she chose her words with the precision of a poet and the impact of a boxer. Each syllable was calculated for maximum effect. Bleach. Artificial. Fake. Blonde. Obvious. Trying too hard. Bad built. Physically flawed. Butch. Aggressively unfeminine. Body. Reducing the target to mere physicality. Together they created a devastating portrait painted in just 6 words. This confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum. It occurred during a period of unprecedented polarization in American politics, when personal attacks had become commonplace and civility seemed like a quaint relic of the past. In this context, Crockett's response represented something new, the possibility of fighting back without losing your dignity. The timing was perfect. Social media algorithms rewarded viral content. Cable news needed compelling footage. The public was hungry for authentic moments in an era of manufactured political theater. Crockett's response checked every box, creating a perfect storm of cultural relevance and political significance. This moment established Jasmine Crockett as a force to be reckoned with in American politics. It showed that she wouldn't be intimidated, dismissed, or silenced. For someone still early in her congressional career, that's an invaluable reputation to have. It also sent a message to other potential attackers. Think twice before coming for Jasmine Crockett. She had proven that she could defend herself not just effectively, but devastatingly. The days of treating her as an easy target were over. And for American political discourse, this moment showed that it's possible to fight back against bullies, while maintaining your professionalism and dignity. You don't have to sink to their level to defeat them. Sometimes you can rise above them while simultaneously destroying them. That's the real genius of what Jasmine Crockett accomplished in those 4 minutes. She didn't just defend herself, she changed the rules of the game forever. And Marjorie Taylor Greene? She learned the hard way that not everyone in Congress would tolerate her usual tactics. Some people fight back, and when they do, they might just break the internet in the process.